This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast that takes a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morse, and this week it's the season finale of the Bobcast. On this week's episode, we catch up with three-time All-American and Bates nominee for the D3 Commissioners Association Male Athlete of the Year Award, Ned Farrington. Plus, we chat with the Bates nominee for NCAA Woman of the Year, women's swimming, 14-time All-American Grace Wenger. Rowing head coach Peter Steenstra recaps the IRA National Championship Regatta, and Bates Director of Athletics Jason Fein puts a bow on the year that was in Bates athletics. That's coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The IRA National Championship Regatta marked the final event of the school year for Bates athletics, and the men's rowing team placed fifth in the final point standings over the weekend in West Windsor, New Jersey. The first varsity 8 placed fifth in their grand final, while the second varsity 8 took fourth. Meanwhile, the varsity 4 took third in their final. Head coach Peter Steenstra recaps the regatta. Well, Coach, IRAs, obviously the D3 race, was established a few years ago. How have you seen that kind of go these past few years? Level of competition, obviously, it's a lot of NESCAC schools and a lot of very strong NESCAC schools as we've seen, but also some new schools this year as well, right?
Yeah, the new schools, Ithaca was in this year as well as Milwaukee School of Engineering was new. We had a big jump in the membership. You have to be a member of the IRA in order to be accepted or invited, right? So the first couple of years that we did this, few of the schools actually paid the membership fee, but now that there's a legitimate D3 event, there's reason for everyone to be a part of it. And so whether you go or not, you have to sort of be a member at the early part of the year before you think you're going to get in, right? So, yeah, it's grown, and I don't know the exact number, but it's probably doubled since it began. And it's a great event. It's perfect for us. And, you look at the level of competition that's in there, and you realize that it's the real deal.
Take us through the 2 days, kind of. The first day, for the first varsity 8, you knew you had to basically just beat one school to get in the grand final, whereas the 2V was racing for what they call race for lanes, and kind of. So take us through kind of the first day, and also what the varsity 4 experienced with their time trial.
Well, we can start with the time trial. That's one of those. It's a real mystery, as to how that happens, but you've got to just lay down your very best piece. It's 1,900 meters, and you get yourself into your racing cadence and just try to carry it through. If you're lucky, the boat ahead of you is something that is worth chasing because they start them 30 seconds apart. And if you're unlucky, then whatever is behind you is catching you, right? But it's very much luck of the draw on that sort of thing. But they got through it successfully, which is good. I think they were in the appropriate semifinal, which was the right place to be. And they did well in that race. They ended up in the lowest level final, but they had a very good race with the appropriate competition, and I think they did well. They should be very happy with what they did.
Why 1,900 meters and not just 2,000?
Only because of the body of water.
Okay. Yeah.
And the fact that the starting blocks is a big, it's like a huge dock.
Okay.
So they would have had to pull all that out, and it's all anchored in place and that sort of thing. So, and you just need to give them a chance to think of it as subtracting the starting sequence is really all that it's done, right? That's about 100 meters, yeah. So it allows boats to get up to speed, and then what you're testing is what is the base speed of each crew, and where does that kind of place you in the rank out of the 35 that are there, because it's impossible to poll them and rank them in any other way.
And then the 2V, the race for lanes, because 2V, there were not as many 2V votes as 1V votes, basically.
Right, yeah, I think they were just the 6 boats, I have to think it through, but yeah. The race for lanes is just because you want to have 2 races in order to make it a real legitimate opportunity for the right boats to shine at the top. There is the chance that on the second day the weather could be a factor, and so the lanes would be sort of laid out in the fashion of top rank would get the most preferred lane, that sort of thing. So the reason for that is to make sure that they have the right boats in the right lanes for the final race, because it comes down to half a second every now and then. So you want to make sure that everything's going to be as fair and as appropriate as it should be.
Well, and then the 2V, they were actually, they got 6th in the first race, and then they jumped up to 4th in the second race. They were, I think, lane 1, right?
Yeah,
Which is not supposed to be the best because, like, you're outside, you're more vulnerable to, wind or whatever. But it seems like Bates Rowing doesn't mind being in lane 1.
No, lane 1 wasn't a problem. If anything, there was a tiny bit of wind that was a quartering tailwind sort of thing. It was inconsistent, kind of puffy. So they were in pretty flat water for one thing. And I think that maybe the boats are on the other side of the course got a bit of a push from some of those little puffs, but we're not talking enough to make a difference. So they were fine where they were. They raced really well. Getting ahead of Wesleyan, going into the finish line was a really big accomplishment for that crew. A couple seniors in the boat. So on the dock, I got to say to Fein, well, you ended your career by rowing through Wesleyan.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to finish out your collegiate career. The 1V had a really good heat. The going into that, the question mark was, what is this Milwaukee school?
Right.
We know nothing about it. They've had some decent results over the early part of their existence with small boats and things. So we knew not to look past them. And I think that in that heat, once it was established that they were in the grand final, I think a lot of the boat sort of lost its desire to really go after any additional position. I think it takes a while to get to a level of maturity in your racing that you aren't making decisions from an oar, right? Only the coxswain can make decisions.
Yeah.
So I think Beck, if there's one thing that she maybe regrets saying was, well, we're in the grands, now let's go whatever, right? So she did kind of voice that in the race. I think she meant that to be like, okay, we've done our job.
Yeah.
Now let's see what more we can get. And it's hard to say if the guys really kind of calculated it in the same way that she did, but that was the way that worked out. And it was fine. And then the final was just an absolute barn burner of a race. It was just amazing. I mean, within minutes, I'm standing with the other head coaches from at least the other NESCAC schools, and there was almost a moment of silence of like, holy crap, did that just happen? Because I said to the Williams coach, I said, when's the last time 541 was only good enough for second place in a Division III race? That is just, that 541 was amazing. And for our guys to go 550 and finish 5th, like we've only been 550 on a legitimate course with no tailwind kind of thing, maybe 5 times since I've been here.
So there was no tailwind?
It was, if there was a tailwind, it was the same idea. It was kind of puffy at best.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. So the skill level, the talent, the ability throughout the D3 has gone way, way up. And you can even look and compare to the races on the following day, the final races of the D1, 1Vs, 2Vs, 3Vs, and all that sort of thing. Like our guys would have been in the grand finals of the third varsity 8 and competing with Harvard and Yale and Cal and like that. So it just kind of shows to you where the level of athleticism is, the level of training, where it's going, the level of recruiting that's happening at this within these NESCACs and all the Division IIIs in general, and also the level of demand and commitment that's there. It's really becoming very, very high end.
And that's going to probably keep happening, right? Because this D3 race is probably only going to grow, I imagine.
Yeah, the D3, I don't know how many more schools are out there, but I think that we have a few. Like one that was added in this year was Marietta. For the past couple of years, they kind of said we want to be on the D1 side of things.
Right.
Well, the way that everything's written up is once you make the decision to go to D3, you have to stay there. You can't go back up.
There's no going back.
That's right. And so you have schools like Hobart are kind of sticking to that D1 focus.
Okay, yeah.
Even though they're a Division III school.
Right.
But there's schools that have, there are D3 schools that have D1 teams, right? Hobart's lacrosse team is one of them. I think, I don't know, Johns Hopkins or MIT. There's a couple different places that have 1 or 2 sports that are up there. And so Hobart is kind of hanging out in that zone. But I'm sure that in time they're going to realize that where they belong is in our race,
Well, because you finished ahead of them at NIRCs, right?
Yeah, and that's been that way for
Yeah.
a few years now, right? But because they're not in NESCAC, and because they can have a lot more training and they can do a lot more with their because they're considered IRA and not NCAA and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot that can be done, but it would be a pretty tall order for that school to do much more at the D1 level.
Tell me a little bit about the senior class and kind of what they meant, and maybe particularly the captains, Charlie and Andrew.
Yeah, the class in general was quite good. If we're talking about just the two men's captains right now, I want to give those guys a lot of credit. They did a really good job keeping, first bringing in the freshman class, making them a part of the whole program very early on. I think even over last summer, there was regular communication and contact. It just happens to be that freshman class has a good personality, a lot of character, a lot of guys that just like to row, like to race. So that really helped solidify some things. You add that to a sophomore class that's quite talented, and also has this great energy for racing, and you have the mix of what's needed in there, right? They just needed that bit of leadership, which I think the senior class provided. The boats are quite balanced when you look at what's in there. So we're only graduating the 4 seniors out of that V16 group, and so things are looking quite good with hopefully another good class that's coming in. I think that the energy that Berman and Fry brought was one of, I want to call it more of a quiet energy. They weren't cheerleaders, they weren't hollering a lot. There wasn't a lot of that, like driving people to perform. It was more of this quiet energy of, look, this is a great thing to be a part of, and being a part of this means that there's work to be done, and and we want to perform well whenever we have a chance to. So there's value and purpose in what we're doing. So I think that's what those guys did. It's really shows with where we ended up.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of the level of competition, Wesleyan had quite the year. They never lost. Their 1V never lost a race. Is that more? Were they senior heavy, or are they going to be present again?
Unfortunately, not.
No.
From what I understand, there were 5 sophomores in that boat.
Wow, okay.
So they've got a good string ahead of them here. Yeah. But that also just puts a big target on their back.
Yeah, right.
And obviously Williams was 0.2 of a second away from actually getting them on that last piece. So Williams was a crew that got faster and faster throughout the year. The whole field got faster and faster throughout the year. And so our guys can come away feeling somewhat disappointed based on the fact that they just finished 5th again. But to explain to them things like, well, we went from finishing 6:12 at whatever that early regatta was, and here we are going 5:50. Yeah. And even in one of those, I can't remember the exact speed that we went, but that was a heavy tailwind day, and we weren't much faster. So it was. I just want to impress upon them just how well that they did, because the only thing you can ever hope to do, is just improve throughout the season. Yeah. And there's no question that our guys did that.
Great. Well, any other thoughts you want to share on the rowing season as a whole, maybe men or women? This is the final episode of the Bobcast till August. So.
Yeah. I guess if I were going to take this into the next year, the discussion that I had a brief chat with the guys at the end of the regatta. We were at the boathouse unloading everything, and before I sent them off, I said, "All right, guys, you need to go home understanding that things are going to have to change, right? We've had a lot of success, both sides of the boathouse, with our approach to how we do things, which has been, we're not very aggressive with recruiting. We're honest and open about it. Yeah. We just want to involve people. Yeah. We're very inclusive a program. We want to have anyone who wants to, we've brought them in, and we've done what we can to teach you to row, and we just hope that you buy into it. Yeah. We've also been very forgiving and lenient, and we've been very understanding of all sorts of, whether they be injuries or illnesses or commitments or anything else that happens in life, right? So what the approach we've taken has been a very, the varsity level of what we are has been a very low demand, right? So we expect things like high, quality performance. We expect honesty. We expect trust. We expect direct communication. We expect, that you're going to give us everything you can, but we also understand that people are pulled in many different directions. The problem with what's happening now is we have the competition around us, the atmosphere around us is beginning to change. So the landscape of what it is to be at the top of Division III is changing. And you can see that with things like Tufts going 5 or even 6 boats deep, depending on what side of the boathouse you're on. So the fact that they had these huge programs now post-COVID is really telling you that what's changing is the demand for those athletes at those other programs is being very numbers driven. You must be a powerful oar. You've got to have a good ERG score. And you've got to be flat out dedicated, or you're going to lose your seat. Right? And when you have 6/8 of people, that kind of makes sense. Because it's very hard to differentiate. The one thing I can say as we look forward, knowing that this senior class was the class that lost their senior year to COVID of high school. This is now, I'm declaring the end of COVID.
Okay, you heard it here first.
It's over. It's officially over now. And with that goes things like self-diagnosis of illnesses or injuries. If coming next year, and I've got a whole wall full of names here of first years that are coming in. If they're listening to this podcast, I need them to know now that if you're coming here to be on this team, expect that you're going to work. Expect that you're going to be held to a standard. And I think that the comment that I'll have for moving forward is that expectation is going to become real here. We're never going to have 6/8 deep on both sides of the boathouse. We're just not. But we still want to compete at the top end. Or at least that's what the captains tell me. So as long as the captains are telling me we still want to go to IRA and NCAA, then okay, that's fine. But understand that what it takes to get there now is changing. So if we want to go and play boats at those places, we've got to be ready to do the work to get there. And that starts in the summer, and it happens over the winter. And it means things like I have to tighten the screws a little bit. I can't be quite as wishy-washy. I can't be quite as lenient when it comes to all the things that are happening in the rest of your life. And if you want to be a varsity athlete, a varsity rower at Bates, you got to be prepared for all that comes with it.
It sounds like a little bit more of a D1 mentality of all the schools.
It is. I mean, only because we have to follow what the Joneses are doing at least, right? Because the people we're competing against are very much operating at a high level, which that's what you want, right? You want to compete against the very best. And I think that there's some pressure on us with the recruiting process that we do. So maybe we're going to have to expect more from ourselves as well. I'm still just one head coach and 2 assistant coaches, and even with us being small at the moment, we're still at 65 plus athletes. So there's challenges that come with that. And again, anyone either entering or looking into Bates know that the most you ever get out of me is half. But that's just the way that it's going to work, and we're going to have to be that much more intentional about all of our efforts.
Our D3 Commissioners Association Male Athlete of the Year nominee is Bates Cross Country and Track and Field All-American Ned Farrington, who 2 weeks ago became the first Bobcat to earn All-America honors in men's cross country, men's indoor track and field, and men's outdoor track and field in the same school year. Farrington joins the Bobcast this week to look back on his All-America performance in the 1,500 meters, which capped off a year to remember. Well, Ned, happy to catch up with you this week on the season finale of the Bobcast, talking some men's track and field. And I watched the prelims and the finals. The prelims was pretty interesting. That heat you ran in, it seemed like you were kind of more towards the back for most of it, and then you surged forward. You knew you had to get top 4, and it was close. Take us through that race from your perspective.
Yeah, the prelim was super scary. I had never done anything like that before. Yeah, I've just never been in a prelim before, so wasn't really sure how it was going to play out. We were kind of ready for anything. We didn't have a direct strategy. And yeah, I mean, I was in one of the outside lanes to start, and because of that, it was kind of hard to get towards the front. So I said, you know what? We're going to go to the back and make sure we don't fall here, trip on anyone. And then yeah, with like 700 to go, the pace started to pick up a little bit. So I moved up, got into like 4th. But then with, 300 to go, people started passing me and I was trying to go with them, but I was just completely blocked from going outside. So I just had to kind of sit there, stay as calm as possible. And then with like 150 to go, I started really turning on the jets. And then luckily this little gap opened up and I was able to slide outside and just sprinted as hard as I ever have in those last 80 meters to somehow pull off fourth and make it through to the final.
Yeah, because fourth got you the auto qualifier because the other heat was actually faster than your heat, which I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, it must have been quite the relief knowing you had the auto bid while the other runners were going, right?
Yeah, if you're in the first heat of two prelims, you really want to get the auto bid because the second heat knows the time they need to run to get the time qualifiers. So they're almost always gonna go faster. So yeah, if you're in that first heat, you want to take things in your own hands and make sure you get a top 4 spot. Yeah.
And then take us through the final. In this case, you were near the front pretty much the whole time, right? A little bit different race.
Yeah, luckily I got an inside lane assignment for the final, and the plan was really just to get out in no worse than sixth place, sit there, and then we had our eyes on 2 people, and that was Sam Laneza from Lynchburg and Eric Anderson from UC Santa Cruz. We knew they would kind of dictate the race, and yeah, sure enough, Sam made a very big move with 500 to go. You could like really noticeably see people start to speed up, and yeah, I knew like it felt really hot, but I was like, I gotta just cover this move, and yeah, I really, really went for it. Got all the way until like second place with 100 to go. And then, yeah, I started really feeling it, but it was my fastest close ever. I think it was like 56.3 or something, which is like by far the fastest last lap I've ever ran. And yeah, luckily I was able to hang on through those last few strides and still get fifth. Yeah.
Well, and one of the athletes I know fell during the race, and so the results weren't official for a while. What was going through your mind while waiting for the results to actually be official?
Yeah, I had kind of known that I was somewhere between like fourth and seventh.
Yeah.
I did actually feel he clipped the back of my heel, and I think that's actually why he fell. But obviously, that's not my fault if I'm in front of him, right? That's just him kind of stumbling. So I wasn't worried about like a disqualification, but I felt that and I kind of heard some commotion and I didn't really know what happened until I watched the race back. But yeah, it turns out he took a really nasty spill there and very unfortunate. He was definitely in position to go top 8, get a trophy, but yeah.
So you weren't nervous, but Danny Feldman told me he was pretty nervous about it. He didn't want to count his chickens before they were hatched, right? I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure like when you're in the coach's position, you're always a little more nervous. I was just kind of like excited and sort of relieved that the race was over. I was very nervous going into that one. And like with the thunderstorms and stuff, like I had to catch a flight to get back for graduation. So I was like, I really hope this goes on time. And it was the last race before like a 2-hour thunder delay. So thank God we got that in.
Yeah, it's wild because if you had not gotten that race in, I mean, you probably would have just missed your flight, right? You probably just wouldn't have gone back for graduation. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would not have made it back, which that it is what it is. Like I'll go to nationals over graduation every day of the week, but I think for my family, they would not have been as happy with that. So I was really stoked that I got back in time.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, you mentioned never having been in a prelim before. So what kind of things were you talking with coach about before it in terms of like how to handle it and everything?
Yeah, the problem with the prelim is 9 times out of 10, it's going to be very, very tactical. So a lot of jockeying for position. You never know when someone's going to make a move, and it's always just going to be a blistering last 300 meters. So coach was like, it's you don't have experience with this. There's not really an exact plan we can pick. You just have to be ready for everything. So it was really just about being like as alert as possible. And I have this like very vivid moment from 300 to go where I was in like 6th or 7th and very, very boxed in. There was no path. And I was like, the only thing you can do right now, if you want to make it through this, is just stay as like calm as possible. Just relax your face, relax your arms and everything. And just pray that you get an opening in the last 100 meters. And like, that worked out perfectly. Like, sure enough, that's what happened. And I always knew that like, if it comes down to 100 to go, I'm going to be able to out sprint like most of the guys I'm with. So I knew I had it when I was 100 meters to go.
Yeah, because when I was watching, I was like, how is Ned going to get out in front of some of these guys? But yeah, it was packed together. I mean, in a normal race, like during the season, it's not normally that grouped together, is it?
Yeah, because that's, the most competitive race you're going to be in all year is NCAAs.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a crowded race at Providence just because I was racing a lot of like Division I guys who are around my level. But like usually, it's gonna be you and a couple other kids at the front, and it's not gonna be too difficult. But when everyone there is run between 3:43 and 3:48, it's like it's gonna be super, super bunched up. Yeah.
Certainly. So, I mean, you pulled off the trifecta, All-America honors in all 3 seasons. Entering this year, like go back to before cross-country season, was that even in your mind as a possibility? I mean, how did the season kind of unfold for you, sort of?
Yeah, I think after last year, during outdoor, I was definitely like, I think if we really work towards it, we can graduate with one All-America honor, right? I was thinking that would probably be like indoor in the distance medley or the mile or something, just because there's sometimes like in the mile and indoor it gets a little diluted, the competition, just because there's people are doing the distance medley and 800 and whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely wanted to get cross country All-American. I think after my college and NESCAC's race, I was definitely not really, nobody thought I was going to do that, nor did I. I was kind of just like, you know what, we're going to do everything we can for the team here at regionals. Whatever happens, happens. Got fourth at that regional meet. And then, I had the thought in my mind that maybe we could do it. And sure enough, we did. And then kind of ever since that nationals race in cross country, I've just had like a new level of confidence and kind of known that if I believe it and put my mind to it, like I will be able to compete with anyone. And I think that just progressed further and further all the way until that last race. Yeah.
And then Danny and Allison both mentioned how like the alums have been really kind of invested in your performance and following along and supporting you. What did that support mean to you, sort of?
Yeah, the alum support is outstanding at Bates. Everybody's just very like genuine. They just want to see people succeed. And I don't think I fully understood that until like now. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, I really, really want to see these guys do as well as possible next year. I thought I would maybe not be super invested after graduating. But yeah, I mean like the amount of just like emails and, texts and LinkedIn direct messages I got from different alums that I've kind of like looked up to or like seen their name on a record board or top 10 list and been like, wow, it'd be cool to be like them my senior year. Just like hearing from those people is incredible. And I think Bates has an incredibly special alumni network for track and field and really for every sport. So, yeah.
And you're headed to University of Maine for your extra year of eligibility here coming up all 3 seasons. And so does the training start now, or when does that start for D1?
Yeah, I just started up on Monday. I got a nice, 6-7 days off just to reset my body a little bit. And we're just doing some easy running right now, building up, headed out to Boulder, Colorado for the summer to get up to altitude, get my blood a little thicker. Hoping I can just keep progressing there and hopefully the competition drags me to a new level. I'd really like to, I like to compete. I don't just like to run fast. I really could care less about my times. I just want to compete at a high level. So I think this is a team I could do it on and, a conference I can do it in and, maybe even make it all the way to the national meet in D1. We'll see.
Great. Well, any other thoughts you want to share either on your time at Bates or your final meet there?
I guess just huge thank you to you for all you do, Aaron. I don't think, Bates Sports would be the same without all the hard work you're doing. And just, major thank you to all the coaches and everything. Can't wait to come back for alumni and see everyone. And it's been an awesome 4 years.
Excellent. Ned Farrington, All-American this year in cross country, indoor track and field, and outdoor track and field. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Aaron.
Our NCAA Woman of the Year nominee is Bates swim and dive 14-time All-American Grace Wenger. Wenger helped the Bobcats finish in the top 20 at the NCAA championships every year during her time as a Bobcat, with Bates finishing as high as 14th when she earned 7 All-America honors as a sophomore in 2022. Wenger looks back on her time as a Bobcat.
Well, Grace, first of all, I mean, our nominee for NCAA Woman of the Year, what does that mean to you in terms of, your time as a Bobcat to kind of receive that recognition, in terms of your impact for the swimming and diving program at Bates Athletics as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it feels amazing. I mean, there are so many great athletes who are also such amazing people at this school, and it feels like a really great way to kind of tie everything together and just finish off my last season.
And speaking of that last season, you were a captain this year. How was that experience kind of being, a leader of this team?
It felt amazing. I feel like I've been kind of just like looking forward to this season, just ready to take on that role. And everything went great. And I feel like I learned a lot from it. And it was a great way. I feel like it was a great way to kind of jumpstart me into what's next.
And what is next for you? Just as you're senior, I got to ask you that, right?
Yeah. I'm actually moving to Bozeman, Montana with my sister and one of my friends. Gonna work out there for a year at Montana State and then go to a PhD program hopefully the following year. I'm working with a professor in a lab. She is doing a lot of work with single-celled viruses and different biofilms. So I'm gonna be doing a little bit of lab work, some data analysis for her, helping get one of her new projects started.
Nice. Now I know you're another year of eligibility. Do they have a swim team? That doesn't work on this probably, right?
I do, but I don't think I'll be using it. I kind of want to leave everything at Bates. It was a great place to be, and I kind of want to leave my swimming there.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, obviously you only had the 3 seasons basically, but what were like maybe a couple memorable meets for you? Obviously NCAA's I'm sure is memorable. What were some things that really stood out that you think you'll remember, 10 years down the line?
This past NESCACs was definitely a highlight for me. I feel like our team came together so well, and we had such a phenomenal group of women and such a phenomenal energy, and we really all came together and just really fought for that place that we got. So that was definitely one of my highlights.
And you won your first NESCAC title individually, right?
I did. Yeah, that was also something I was really excited about.
And that was in the 200 free, right?
Yes, yeah.
And what did that mean to you, kind of like, because you were a high placer every year, and what did it mean to finally break through as a senior?
Oh my gosh, it was great. I went into that and I was like, this is what needs to happen. It's my last year. So that was very much felt full circle, very much felt like a culmination of all the work I've been doing. So that was the most amazing feeling ever.
Excellent. And then you mentioned going to Montana and continuing, your kind of, starting a career in science and everything. What kind of inspired you to get into that, field?
I guess after my sophomore year, I did a purposeful work internship with Baxter. And then this past year, I did Mount David on my thesis, which was studying with Dr. Paula Schlack's on Lyme disease. Wow. And I was also lucky enough to do an internship through the NSF this past summer. And I did a lot of work in synthetic biology, which is like genetic engineering. And that was kind of the culmination of all that was what really sparked my interest. So I'm really interested in all that genetic editing, stuff like that. So I'm hoping to take that forward with some more synthetic biology in my PhD.
Well, they're trying to ban the synthetic meats. What are your takes on that?
That's actually super interesting to me. I haven't done a ton of research on it, but I want to do more because it does seem, I know genetic engineering is really, it's controversial, but I think it has a lot of really important benefits. I mean, reducing environmental impact, raising meat is has such a strong environmental impact. And I think using genetic engineering for that is a really promising alternative. So I definitely love to learn a little bit more about it.
That'll definitely be interesting. And then going back to swimming a little bit, I mean, with your teammates and everything, what are some memorable moments maybe outside the pool? I know training trip, I'm sure, is memorable each year, but what are some things you'll take away as a team, kind of, at that experience being at Bates?
Wow, that's a really good question. There are so many moments. I mean, I feel like one moment that just comes to mind is in our lockdown past October, just getting to see everyone when we were walking through Commons, like everyone would just hug each other and just be there for each other. And it was just a really moving moment for me because it showed me that there is so much stronger of a bond with this team than just on the pool deck. Everyone is there to support each other through everything, and everyone just wants to be everyone's biggest cheerleader. And that was kind of a moment for me where I realized the importance of, in being a leader, it's important to make everyone feel comfortable and just wanting to be there for each other. And that was just a big moment for me.
Excellent. What are your thoughts you want to share about your time at Bates on the swim team we haven't got to talk about yet?
I just think it's an amazing team, and it has honestly pushed me to be the better version of myself, both in the pool and outside of the pool. And it's given me so many challenges that have seemed almost impossible to work through at times. And then you work through it and you get through it and you have your team behind you. And it's just shown me the importance of a strong support system and being able to find that, and just being there, being able to be a support system for other people, and how rewarding that can be.
Excellent. She was our women's MVP at the Catspies and now our NCAA Woman of the Year nominee. Head off to Montana. Grace Wenger, thank you so much for joining the Bobcast. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
2023-24 school year featured a number of remarkable moments for Bates athletics. It was a challenging year at times, but one that many a Bobcat will long remember. Director of Athletics Jason Fein joined us to recap it all. Well, Jason, wrapping up the 2023-24 school year here on the Bobcast. I mean, from your perspective, it's been kind of a crazy year starting in the fall. Obviously, we had, the tragedy that took place in Lewiston, but then kind of the inspiring performance by our field hockey team on Halloween. Take us through the fall, and in particular, kind of how the campus it seemed like rallied around some of our sports, particularly field hockey, what they were able to do for not only Bates, but for the community as a whole.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. First of all, Aaron, it's always good to be invited on the Bobcast. And I know this is our wrap-up edition, so great to be here talking about the year. And thank you for everything that you do. I know we just had the Catspies, and you got a big ovation, but I just want to echo everybody's sentiments in the department. And thank you for all you do. And the fall, this has been some year. And the fall seems like yesterday, but it seems like a really long time ago as well. And I think that, coming in initially with our new president and the excitement towards the inauguration and knowing that athletics was going to be a big focus, it was perfect to have, good cross country seasons and a great, field hockey season going. Of course, then, we get hit with, just like an unspeakable, unfathomable kind of thing. Full disclosure, when people from, home, everybody knows, I think, that I'm from New York, and people ask me, what's it like living in Maine? And I used to say, well, it's kind of like going into the witness protection program. And here we were with every national news broadcast and everybody knowing Lewiston, Maine, for not the reasons you would hope they would know them. But seeing the way that the community rallied and that our campus rallied was just one of those things that doesn't show up in a box score. And whether it was doing, donations and selling T-shirts, and, then just kind of coincides with this great run in field hockey where we're going to, potentially host. And I'm glad that we were able to pull that off. And, also thank you to, the NESCAC for, adapting the schedules and kind of everybody working together with Lewiston and Bates. But, it was great. The media picked up on it, and it was kind of field hockey putting the town on their back, and, along with plenty of other things that went on in the town. And, right after we had that great memorable game, then, Lewiston High School had a big memorable game, and, had James Taylor out there singing the national anthem, and it was just a great time to not only be a Bobcat but be part of the Lewiston community and Lewiston Auburn, and just I think it just kind of set the tone for how we wanted to run through the rest of the year. And while the media sometimes moves right on from stories like that, obviously in Maine, it lingered, and we were able to make a big difference. I think all the teams with kind of a Lewiston strong campaign, and the Bobcats really stepped up, which is not a surprise, but it kind of took us into the end of that fall semester in a weird place, weirdly uplifting place, I would say.
Moving kind of into the winter, it seems like, obviously women's basketball kept that momentum going, at Alumni Gym. I just want to ask about the crowds we had this year, because for women's basketball in particular, but also the end of the field hockey season where they charged the field when they beat Bowdoin. This has been the most, I think, school spirit I've seen from our students in quite some time. What are your thoughts on how the students really seem like they are really supporting the teams this year?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it was so great to see. And one of the best things, in my time, not only at Bates, but in intercollegiate athletics. And Aaron, better than anybody else, because you came out of minor league baseball where atmosphere is a big deal. And I came into Bates with a big campaign push to make sure that, people wanted to come to our events, whether they were fans of the sport or not, but because it was the thing to do on campus. And we talked a lot about, marketing and promotions and things that happen. And then to hear folks like you say, hey, I've never seen anything like that. And to James Reese, right, who's our, longest tenured employee at Bates, almost 5 decades, who, we're lucky enough to have work our basketball games. And, the game where we had that win over Tufts, and then we had the win against Bowdoin. James told me that only one other time in his entire career at Bates could he remember seeing that gym more packed. And it was a 1991 men's game against Colby, where I think Colby was ranked nationally, and we were trying to take them down. And now at that point also, the capacity was different, and we would stuff people into any available space in the rafters, right? There were no worries about the codes. So I took that as a huge compliment for us. And as you know, we had to turn people away, find creative ways to make more space. And then going into the NCAAs, actually, where you're selling tickets and through our online ticket provider, selling that game out in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's been, it's like, I think it's our little version of like Cameron Indoor for Division I comparison. And you just don't know what that atmosphere is like until you're in it. And I'll just, say, look, the first round, we were able to host my alma mater, right? Brooklyn College, which was, such a cool feeling for me. And I got to speak with the team and the coaches and a couple of the administrators that I knew. And, our fans, they love to get on the opposing teams and boo them and this and that. And, the Brooklyn folks, the students on the team, they were like, we love this.
Yeah.
Like we have some folks at Bates that are like, oh, that's a little bit, rude or impolite, whatever. Meanwhile, that team loved it. They're like, we love it. It's like air for us getting booed like that, because they're good, just like from the city. And it was a great atmosphere and just a really cool, experience for us. But the other thing, Aaron, that for me is that what we've tried to do in our time here, right, is challenge expectations and say, look, why not Bates, right? And the idea, when it's something that they think we can't do, nobody is going to love doing that thing more than me. And I think, and then our staff and our student athletes. So, I think there were questions about whether we could even host a field hockey tournament game, whether we could even host NCAA. And I think we answered that, not only with a resounding yes, but like, we'll be back. And to me, that was great. I think people will be waiting all summer for the fall to come and to be out there, hopefully not only for field hockey, but other, all our other sports as well. And I think that our fans travel really, really well. When we got eliminated in the Sweet 16 for basketball, we had probably a bigger crowd than anybody, with the exception of maybe the home team. And, even our home squash matches, our cross country races, our rowing regattas, our fans, show up. So it's a terrific atmosphere, and it's something that I think kind of transcends Bates and the NESCAC that people know about Alumni Gym, and they should.
Yeah, I was going to say those teams that came in for the NCAA tournament, they're kind of like, oh, this is a little different than what we're used to. A lot different than what we're used to, I think, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I think that, and going back to the field hockey piece that you mentioned,
Yeah.
seeing our fans storm the field, I think it was also a release after everything that had happened to the town. But what a great moment for our team and for our female student athletes that are just getting it done day after day, to be celebrated like that, and to see all our other teams out there and all our other students out there, and frankly, our administrators out there. At that field hockey game match alone, we had, the dean of the college, several vice presidents, the president. I mean, the mayor. It's incredible.
You've also, made some hires here this year. We've got a new men's soccer coach, Ben Brewster, coming in. Tell us a little about him and what your hopes are for, that program. And then also some of the programs, maybe they're still kind of building up, right? Younger coaches who are trying to, put their fingerprints on the program, establish a tradition of winning here. What are your thoughts on kind of those programs that are kind of more in the developmental stage right now?
Yeah, I mean, super excited about Ben Brewster coming in. Our men's soccer program, I think, is at a good point right now to start that climb back up, the NESCAC ladder. There's high enthusiasm, and Ben, with the experience he's had and coming from UMass, I think just, kind of wowed everybody in the interview process. He hit the ground running. He was able to start and be here for spring soccer, which was terrific. And to get acclimated, and we're excited that, the NESCAC has now allowed that, developmental segment out of the season, the traditional season. So I think that, Ben he's just been a terrific teammate, I think, in the department the last few months, and we're excited to see him actually get out there this fall, to talk about some of the other programs that I think are up and coming and in different various stages of building or rebuilding or reloading. I think that we've got a bunch of coaches that are here, 5 years or less, right? And coming out of COVID just a couple of years ago, it was a new, time to kind of start building. So I think, you look at it in the fall and having, Danny Feldman in cross country and things have been able to do there. I think volleyball is going to, be on the rise this fall, and Emily Hayes is, just a tireless recruiter. And I think that team is kind of poised to make some noise, hopefully in the NESCAC, and certainly both our lacrosse programs, I think, are starting to reach the point. I think you saw it with, a big win that the women's lacrosse team had at the end of the season with Colby, and I think that the men saw those strides with some of the games that we had in men's lacrosse this year for sure. And I think so there's a lot of excitement, I think, about a lot that's going on, even with the programs that, have not been as successful as some of the ones that are making the NCAAs and making that noise. I think that people will be really excited, and, it should not go unsaid. I think that, Bates was 25th in the Directors Cup after the winter seasons this year. Incredible achievement. So, everyone is contributing, even if you're not, winning a conference championship, or being, swimming, for example, right? With all the participants in the NCAAs and continuing to climb there. Ned Farrington this spring, great story. So, everybody's doing their part, and I think that something brand new that we're excited about. First of all, our golf teams have made incredible strides since we brought on the coaches that we've had, and now we're actually going to bring on another coach for tennis. Paul Gastingay has been here for nearly 3 decades, coaching both teams, and we're going to hire a head coach for the women's team to work with him as the men's head coach and director of tennis. So we continue to make some great strides, and I'd be remiss if I did not thank, President Jenkins, all our VPs that have listened to us and to the student athletes, whether it comes to things about staffing or capital projects and things like that I'm sure we'll talk more about as well. So it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, let's follow up on that. So big facility plans in the works, obviously starting with Russell Street Field, but some more goals are ahead, right?
For sure. I think that one thing that our student athletes have gotten used to is that when we say that we are, committed to, helping everybody, we know we can't all do everything at the same time at once, but we will continue pushing and continue advocating. And luckily, we have an administration and a board of trustees that's open to that. For the first time, we have a trustee subcommittee, dedicated to athletics that we meet with very regularly. Russell Field is one of the, areas that, there are other spots too that need improvement. But that one has been designated as it's been a problem spot as a natural grass field for soccer and for other sports, intramurals, clubs, etc. Having a state-of-the-art turf product there with lights this fall is going to be a huge game changer for us, not only for the soccer teams, but we fully expect that, the lacrosse teams will be out there practicing. It is going to be lined from multiple sports so that, if we needed to have games out there when there's conflicts, we can do that. That field also gets a different level of sun. It's in a different spot on campus than Garcelon is. So when it comes to practicing, getting that turf cleared, we imagine will be somewhat easier with some of the winter problems we have, and getting teams out there. And then you've got lights on it. So you can have teams, you're talking less missed class time, less conflicts with, commons, less teams having to be, pushed off to less desirable fields and times because we can go out there at night under the lights and have club sports and intramurals. So that's going to be a huge game changer for us. We know that baseball and softball, had rough springs as far as the weather is concerned. That's definitely on our radar as well. We've got a great, donor base that has we've been able to rely on, right? I mean, $700,000 raised in the FBA challenge this year. But we need to get some large gifts and work together with advancement and with finance to see what will come next. But we're excited about Russell, and then super excited about the fitness center project that we hope will bring a new fitness center to Bates in the next couple of years. Fundraising is definitely underway for that. We have some preliminary plans, and we're excited to push ahead with that. And just got to keep pushing. And we know we've been a little bit behind our peers in capital improvements, facilities. We're making strides as we can. We're doing it wisely, I think, and strategically. And it can never be fast enough for everybody. And trust me, nobody wants to put the pedal to the metal more than I do. Really, the biggest thing that's terrific is seeing how the students appreciate it and how they actually acknowledge it and say thank you. We see you, working hard for us. And that, I will say, this group of seniors this year, it's been such a pleasure working with them, from everything from the Catspy's planning to projects to hiring staff, and then being there at commencement a couple weeks ago and hearing them just introduce us, Celine and I, to their families and saying thank you for what we've done is huge. So we're going to keep pushing ahead, keep advocating, but we're definitely looking forward to starting that with our next project on Russell Field.
Yeah, because I would say, the purist in me loves natural grass, but I think to be competitive in Maine, you need turf pretty much everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. And look, I'm with you, and I think that any purist would love a beautiful grass pitch for soccer and a great grass field for baseball or softball. We're working against the elements here, and you saw that the weather is just too unpredictable in the spring, and frankly, we're not equipped to have a dedicated grounds crew for every field. Yeah. With dedicated equipment for just only those fields. Our grounds team and facilities team do an incredible job, considering that they are not only taking care of our fields, but they're taking care of every facility on campus. So yes, I think that's an acceptable trade off to make, knowing that we'll have a terrific surface, and it'll be turf and it'll be competitive with some of the other best fields in the league. I think makes a ton of sense.
Excellent. And then I know this is very bittersweet, but Celine Cunningham got the director of athletics position at Dickinson College. Your deputy here at Bates. Obviously, I mean, we're all very happy for her. It's great to see people advance right in their careers, but I know for you it's going to be a little tough road till we get that job filled, right?
I'm sorry, she what?
She's leaving, Jason.
Wait, they hadn't told me.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is one of those things, part of our profession, that is it's a very bittersweet thing. But if you're doing it right, Aaron, it's harder and harder to find the bitter parts, because as much as you want to be upset and go, no, I can't stand you leaving, any coach wants to see their players go on and compete at the next level, if that's on the field or that's graduating, getting a job. Any head coach is thrilled when their assistant coach gets their first head coaching job. And as much as that, that's just the nature of our business. And I've been super lucky to work with, one of the best in Celine for 6 years. I think that, on our team, we all consider each other teammates, and I don't think anyone works for necessarily anybody. I think we get to work with each other. And, when that opportunity came up, Celine is, more than ready to have, that opportunity as an AD in another one of the most competitive leagues in the nation, in the Centennial. Those teams are competitive. And yeah, that's what you want as an AD is your folks on your team to go on and be great ADs. So I'm super happy for her. As much as I'd love to be upset, I'm finding it really hard to be upset. I'm sure I'll be upset like on July 2nd when I come in and she's not there. It's hard to imagine that. But she's not only a great colleague, she's a great friend. And when she got the job, interestingly enough, some of our students, I know reached out to her. A couple reached out to me saying, "Hey, could I have Celine's, number? I want to reach out to her and congratulate her and thank her for everything she's done." So I think she's got a piece of her that will always be a Bobcat, and we'll follow her along with her. And and we'll do our best not to replace her, but to find somebody to come in and help us out and do a great job as well.
So I guess that's kind of looking forward to next year. What are some goals you kind of have in your mind? I mean, we've talked about facilities. Obviously, those are things. Russell Street Field is going to be completed over the summer, which is very exciting. But what are some goals maybe you have in mind for the department in terms of like maybe more, almost abstract, a little bit more or specific, I guess, about what you're looking forward to for next year as we get into the summer months here?
From a competitive standpoint, I'd love to see, our teams continue to compete at a high level. No one in the NESCAC is lying over for Bates or for anybody else for that matter. So it's going to be tough, right? And I hope that everybody gets some time in the summer to rest and recharge, but come back focused and not being, content with wherever we were this year. And if that meant we were in the NCAAs, then we want to go further in the NCAAs. If that means we didn't make the playoffs, it means we want to make the playoffs. I think that, from a culture standpoint, I think our department is in a really good place where our student athletes feel comfortable enough to share information on things that are going well, on things that they wish were going better. And we have a nice open dialogue there. And I think that our professional development and our recruiting of our coaches has continued to be stepped up at every turn. And I expect that will certainly continue. One thing that I'm really looking forward to is, working on more staff and professional development within the department on all kinds of areas, team culture, parent and alumni relations, DE&I work and belonging. And I think our staff right now is really excited to kind of work together strategically, because we spent a lot of the last year working on a strategic plan and kind of a compass for our department. And now we're starting to execute that plan. And we had just a terrific staff development day a couple days after commencement with our entire staff there engaged and talking about, what we want the next year, 3 years, 5 years to look like. So I think one thing we'll do for sure is work together with advancement and do as much as we can on the fundraising end and the donor and friends and families and parents relations end to make that those next projects happen. very excited about a peak performance plan for our student athletes that will take sports medicine, nutrition, strength and conditioning, sleep and time management, and every area of wellness and well-being under one umbrella, and work on that with our student athletes. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to roll out something along those lines in the next year that brings a lot of that under one umbrella. So there's a lot to be excited about. Every summer, everybody's excited for a little bit of a rest, but could not be more excited about coming back this fall.
I'd be remiss to mention we're hoping to establish a Hall of Fame here shortly, so that's exciting as well, right? In terms of the history.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I appreciate you mentioning it. It's something that we've talked about for a long time. We've got a great committee together that you're on with us, and some great folks that just know a lot about the history. And it was very surprising to me actually when I first found out about Bates Athletics that with such a long and kind of storied history that we didn't have a Hall of Fame. So this is something that is long been in the making, and I think we have a really cool group of alums from every decade that are excited to help in the process. And I think that in this coming year, people will hear more about it, and we'll have our first big event where we'll induct our first class, pretty soon. So it's exciting, and thanks for teasing that out to the world.
Of course. Well, anything else you wanted to mention about the past year we haven't gotten to talk about yet?
I just want to acknowledge, everybody at Bates. Again, all the student athletes, our entire staff. This does not happen without a great team that we are successful in any way. And some of the best moments, while everybody knows that we love to win and to be competitive, seeing the support from our president, seeing support from our administration, seeing our faculty out at games. I know so many institutions I talk to their faculty athletics reps and their ADs, and they are so envious when they hear that we don't have a lot of the problems that other institutions have with, relationships with the faculty. Our entire, group at Bates is remarkable. And after 7 years here, I feel like we're just getting going, and there's a ton of work to do, no doubt about it. But it's great times ahead, and I don't say it's a great day to be a Bobcat lightly. I think that saying has a lot of weight behind it. But it is true when you like what you do and love what you do and love the folks that you do it with. It's not like going to work every day. It's like going to school and having a good time. And we work hard, and I think that our staff is top notch, as is everybody on campus. So I don't have anything specific to add. I appreciate you letting me come on and talk. I know that you guys are going to be hard at work working on our new website, and a lot of new things going on with streaming and a ton of things in communications. Really appreciate everything that you do, and excited for the future.
The Bobcast is off until next fall, but you can keep up to date on all the latest Bates Athletics news by visiting our website, gobatesbobcats.com. Thank you for tuning in all year to the Bates Bobcast.